4, 3, 2.
Welcome to Westchester Jewish Community Services. As a leading agency in providing a comprehensive spectrum of human services, we have been helping people since 1943. We serve all people in Westchester County, regardless of age, income, or ethnicity. We provide a wide variety of essential and dynamic services that make a difference in people's lives. Children, teens, adults, and senior citizens are served by our network of programs located throughout the county. When people come to us for assistance, they become part of the WJCS family. Our highly trained and skilled staff focus on you and your family and are committed to becoming your partner in finding solutions. For more than half a century, we have been connecting people to services that help them overcome mental, physical, or emotional challenges. WJCS is here in your community when you need us.
Welcome to the Ways We Care of Westchester Jewish Community Services. I'm Dale Wang, Director of Community Relations. WJCS is funded through government grants, private individuals and foundations, UJA Federation, United Way, and various corporations. No one likes to acknowledge that domestic abuse exists, but Yankees manager Joe Torre knows that it does because he lived with it. As a result of his experiences as a child, the Joe Torre Safe at Home Foundation sponsors programs that offer safe havens for young people affected by violence in their lives. In 2006, the Safe at Home Foundation partnered with WJCS to establish Margaret's Place programs in selected Westchester schools. Tonight, we will learn about these services from key WJCS staff who have been involved with the development and implementation of this important program. And to talk about Margaret's Place, I'd like to introduce Dr. Megan Flynn, who is Director of WJCS Children's Services.
Glad to be here.
Welcome, Megan. And Amira Martin, who is Program Manager of Margaret's Place. Yeah. Thank you both for joining us on this first wintry day of winter. Megan, give us a little bit of background in history, how this program came about, and how we got it started.
Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, Joe Torre and his wife, Alice Torre, began the Joe Torre Safe at Home Foundation in 2002 as an effort to really begin to make this a topic that can be discussed, to create safe havens for youth, and to allow a process of Margaret's Place, which is his mother's name, to be cited in schools as safe locations for students to begin to be able to have, to be able to discuss the violence that might exist in their lives, to have groups that help empower students to become proactive on behalf of safety for themselves, their community, their families. And to provide a psychoeducational component that helps to really provide information to the community, meaning both the school community and the community at large, regarding domestic violence, relationship violence, and to empower people to really be proactive and for youth to have tools to step forward for themselves as well. So there are actually three large components that are part of Margaret's Place. And first, even before I mention those, the most important is that it creates a safe location in the school for students to know that they can, in confidence and privately, have someone who is a support to them. The programs work very closely with pupil personnel as the project moves forward. And then there are three pieces embedded in the program, which also partners with Safe Horizons, which is a victims assistance program in the city. One piece is a curriculum called Pearls, which is people empowered
to just real life situations.
And it's an 11 component curriculum that's provided through health classes or during study hall or recess or sometimes in art class, et cetera. It really depends on what fits with the school. That's provided to all the students in the school. It is a skill-building, problem-solving curriculum that helps students to question the issues of victimization and violence, to provide tools and resources to address that, provide communication tools, conflict resolution tools, and that is part of the Margaret's Place program as a whole. It also provides individual and group counseling to students, primarily, although not exclusively for students individually who may have had domestic violence in their lives at home or in the community, both individual and groups. So there are also sort of groups that may be theme-based as well, for example, dating relationships or family conflict resolution, all of which are really skill building and strengthening. There's another component that is a peer leadership program, and that is to really open the doors wide to students to really become active in their school and to partner with other programs in the school that are invested in prevention of violence. And the last piece is a psychoeducational component, which is to outreach to the community of families and educators, providing information on domestic violence and trauma and other kinds of victimization, so that people become increasingly sensitized and able to talk about it. 1 in 3 women in this country are affected by domestic violence, and it's something people are not comfortable talking about or recognizing as part of what exists in all of our communities and culture.
You've given an amazing overview. However, we've got to go back, because I think one of the important things was that this was set up in partnership with the Safe at Home Foundation, and you mentioned the Safe Horizons.
Right.
Talk a little bit about how this came about and why Joe Torre was interested in doing this. I mean, he's brought a lot of visibility to this issue.
Absolutely.
I think it would be interesting for people to know what impact, why they selected an organization like WJCS to participate, and what the role of Safe Horizons has been.
I mean, I think this is a very powerful and personal issue for the Torres, for Joe and his wife, Allie. He, as a child, and all of his siblings lived with this in their family. His father was a police officer, and there was domestic violence in the house. He was somewhat buffered from that because of his older siblings, but his sense is that as an adult, it was only at that point in time that he was really able to begin even looking closely at what his experience had been and the kind of impact that that's had on his life as a man, as a father, and the ripple effects that had throughout his family. And he reports that for him it was an experience of never feeling confident of himself, of not being someone who felt he could speak up. Sports was the one place that he felt that he had something to contribute, and so obviously that was a huge investment in a safe haven for him. He's also aware of that his experience is not unlike that of many youngsters who never felt they could say anything, never had a place to go, never had a person to go to. All children are protective of their families in regard to anything like this. And so his efforts have been directed to ensuring increasingly that there are safe places for kids to go, and it is something that adults can step forward and protect children from, and can help families who may in fact have violence in their lives or in dating relationships or gangs.
One of the beauties of that, I think, is that whereas you said that 1 in how many women?
1 in 3.
1 in 3 women.
1 in 3.
But this obviously shows that it affects a family, and it affects the children, and it affects the men.
And it affects, it goes forward with you throughout your life. And so that experience for children is one that they often keep secrets. So having it become a public issue, having someone who is a very public person become a spokesperson, and also having someone who's a male be able to speak about the experience of that and to make it a reality and to make it a public issue, I think has been incredibly important and powerful and is having a significant effect. Safe Horizons is a victims assistance service, is very well established in the city, and the Torrey Foundation actually partnered with them first, not only because of the experience they have in domestic violence and other areas of victimization, but also because they have a curriculum that has been developed and used over the years, which is the PEARLS curriculum, which we are using. And I think the Torrey Foundation spent a lot of time being very thoughtful about how the components they would like to add to Margaret's Place as a safe haven, and felt this was a wonderful curriculum. Safe Horizons was their first partnership in the city for the Torrey Foundation, so there are multiple sites in New York City and the vicinity that are a partnership between the Torrey Foundation and Safe Horizons to establish Margaret's Place as safe havens in those schools. And then the second tier was to partner with WJCS in Westchester County. I think one of the reasons that we in particular were a potentially good organization for the Torrey Foundation to partner with is because we've had a lot of experience citing programs in schools and gradually working closely with pupil personnel and educators and families to make whatever program we are partnering with a success in the school. And we also have a trauma center, the TICTA program, that has a specialty as well in domestic violence. So there are a lot of resources that we had to bring to bear to help bring this to fruition relatively quickly.
Okay. Amira, I'd like to get a little insight from you as to how you set up the program, who is staffing the program, and how it's actually working in the schools today. Where is it located in various communities?
Well, we have a social worker at White Plains High School. We also have a counselor at Klein Middle School in Harrison. We have a social worker at Emerson Middle School in Yonkers, and we also have a social worker at Pelham Middle School. Mm-hmm. In terms of setup, well, first there were the basics of getting the room set up, but we also worked with our staff to ensure that they worked adequately with pupil personnel services and with their administration in their school to ensure that the program was developed in a way that met the needs of the school and also that did what the program wanted to do.
How were the schools initially selected?
Well, the schools had to apply. There was an application process. So I know that the Joe Torrey Safe at Home Foundation wanted Westchester schools. I'm not sure exactly what they did in terms of selection, mm-hmm. but every school did have to apply and mm-hmm. agree to the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the schools represent very diverse communities.
Yes, I think one of the things that came out when we launched the program a couple of months ago was that this is not an issue that's limited to an economic strata. It's not an issue that is based on ethnic or any type of criteria that would be isolated in one community or another. So
that the schools reflect a diverse range of communities and cultural groups all across Westchester County, and I think that's a very important thing for people to understand, that this is an issue that resides in all our communities.
So the schools applied, and then the administrations in schools agreed to go along with a particular curriculum, set up rooms and assigned rooms, and these, I gather, all the furnishings and everything were created through the Torrey Foundation with a particular plan.
Right. Well, the rooms are set up to be really comfortable. There are sofas, there are coffee tables. Oftentimes, some of the staff will have snacks for kids when they come in. And it's just really a warm atmosphere. There are lots of posters and pictures and things up on the wall that talk about violence and bring it up for discussion.
What makes this program, I understand that it's been quite successful in terms of students actually coming to the rooms, and I wonder what it is that makes it different than just having a social worker in a school or being a guidance counselor in a school. How do you approach the program to make it more welcoming to students and a place where they would open up with something so sensitive?
Well, I think a couple of things. First, that's the mission of the foundation, and us partnering with them, that became our mission. So we provide a really warm and comfortable atmosphere, and we focus specifically on issues of domestic violence, on healthy relationships. We welcome students to come in. There's basically an open door policy. Kids can come in and drop in and learn a little bit about the program. There's groups, there's group activities, group counseling. So it's really a warm place where kids feel comfortable and feel like they can come in. I think also in terms of a school setting and school social workers are often assigned certain tasks that they have to do by, the school district. That's what their role is. They're a social worker in the school for school purposes. With our counselors and social workers, their role is particularly targeted to work with kids that are experiencing violence or domestic violence, or would benefit from learning communication issues and issues of respect and healthy relationships. So we really focus specifically on that.
Mm-hmm. So the curriculum and some of the issues go beyond the traditional idea of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. You had mentioned when we spoke that some of it has to do with dating relationships and with conflict resolution. How does this fit into the picture for people who are grappling with this issue today and young people? What skills are you giving them that in those situations relate to the overall ability to deal with violence in their homes?
Well, a couple of things that I can think of. They learn to think through issues of gender bias. So they learn to kind of take apart the idea that the woman is in a specific role and the man's in a specific role and she's subservient or should be doing this, this, and that. They learn to think through those things for themselves. Not to say to them whose role should be what, but just so that they can look at it and clearly think about it in a way where it's just not assumed that they're going to accept ideas mm-hmm. that they might not otherwise accept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really a process of allowing young people to really look at their beliefs, look at their culture in regard to issues of violence and in relationship to gender and all of those topics.
Mm-hmm. So it really is broader than just a domestic violence curriculum.
Absolutely.
And when you work with the school districts, how do you overcome the politics of being an outside organization coming into a school? I know Megan, as a school-based, the director of our school-based programs for many years, so you've dealt with this. But how did you get the schools to accept and to work with our staff on these issues?
I mean, I would say a couple of things. The Torrey Foundation really were the initiators in terms of approaching schools to ensure that they felt ready to make an investment in having a Safe at Home Foundation in Margaret's Place cited in their schools. And secondarily, we were just at the very beginning stages of establishing Margaret's Place in the districts. We really only moved staff on site in October and November. So we've had a long history as an agency of working closely with school districts. And it really is about establishing first trusting relationships with both educational staff and administration and pupil personnel. That doesn't happen overnight. When you move into somebody's house, you need to learn how their house operates in order to know the rules. It takes time for new outside programs to do that, and our investment is ensuring that we gradually do that and do that well. We're there to be partners. We're there to ensure that we provide as much as we can to school staff and to families and to youth. And so it's a process. It takes time, and it's about building relationships.
Mm-hmm. Amira, talk a little bit about the groups that you're offering and how that fits into the overall curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a couple of different kinds of groups. There's group counseling for kids who have dealt with specific issues, and they can learn from each other and also learn from the social worker that's running the group and really share about their experiences and kind of normalize some of it and learn how to work through some of the tough stuff that they've all dealt with. There are also group discussions where kids can come in to talk about a particular topic, whether it be things like healthy dating relationships or things where they can...
Bullying,
Yeah.
for example.
discuss issues of bullying.
fits under the umbrella.
Bullying,
Absolutely.
Right. And I was just listening this morning about some cyberbullying, so that's a big issue.
Right.
Yeah. And the peer leadership, are you engaging people to lead groups? How is that working? Is it a mentoring program, or what is the nature of that?
Well, our peer leadership groups are probably going to start later on in the year, but what the plan is to recruit young people from the schools and involve them in activities that raise awareness to the issues of violence and domestic violence and bullying, and they would do different sorts of activities. They might decide to have a presentation on the auditorium and put on a play that focuses on the issue. They might put up posters where kids can participate in creating posters to talk about those issues.
I know that the program's just really getting started. How much connection has there been with parents and families when the students have been exposed to it? Has it been the domino effect that their parents and families are coming to you for resources?
I think that's a process that takes time. I mean, we have connections with families through students who may have received or being receiving individual counseling, or families that we have connected to community resources as is appropriate or necessary. We also are gradually and have been starting the process of our staff reaching out to do PTA presentations or staff presentations, so that is in motion now, and that will be expanding as the project moves forward, and that would include workshops for families, parents, in the community, in the school, both.
How much referral is there from our social worker to pupil personnel services and other aspects of the school?
Well, it's hard to really say exactly how much there is. It really depends on the needs of the school. One of the schools doesn't have a social worker, so she would refer to other people within the school. And it really depends case by case. We do try to work with them very closely, though, and refer to them whenever it's appropriate.
Amira, you said that as a result of some evaluation process you're doing now, there were a couple of vignettes that explain how the program is working in its infancy, basically. Could you give us an idea of some of the kinds of things that you've uncovered that are already happening as a result of Margaret's Place?
Sure. One of the schools, we have a young lady who was having a lot of conflict with her mother. It was basically arguments and just difficulty with them two getting along, and we helped both of them in terms of finding ways to have healthier discussions and to talk about things in a way that doesn't get hostile and where there isn't too many arguments or too much tension. And we also have another case where there was a young man who had come in, and through counseling it was found out that he had been exposed to domestic violence. It was several years ago, and the parents had since parted and were in the middle of a divorce. And our counselor is working with that young man and the mom to actually link them to more therapeutic services with an ongoing clinic. They can get ongoing services at that clinic.
So you're beginning to see the results of the interventions that we're providing in the schools. Have you been surprised, or have you had any indication that the issues that students are bringing in are different than what you expected, or that the reception that you're getting is different than what was anticipated?
I mean, I think that students very quickly get a sense, as the Joe Torre Safe at Home Foundation expected and hoped, get a sense that this really is a safe place, and that it does have a specific purpose, and that purpose comes under a big umbrella that is relevant to all students, so that if you walk through the door, it doesn't mean that your family experienced domestic violence. It means that you maybe want to be proactive. It may mean that you want information to understand. It may be that you saw bullying and we're not sure what to do about it. It may be that you're challenged by, as all adolescents are, conflict and how to work that out well with your family. It may be that you're challenged by how to deal with complicated situations in dating relationships and how to extricate yourself from things, male or female, that you're not ready for, you don't want to do in a way that you can feel comfortable with. So I think that message has broadened throughout the school, and students come in constantly. And so that is a wonderful process because it helps us to begin to decide which groups to establish based on what student needs are in that building, or based on pupil personnel input or referrals to the program, and really tailor it somewhat in each site, but still in the parameters of the mission of the organization, the Joe Torre Foundation, and the components of the project.
Mm-hmm. Amira, when you have established some workshops in the schools, how do you go about, the students come in, I think one of the things that Megan said emphasized to me that it's very hard to overcome the stigma of the domestic violence, and what makes this a place where it's not, you don't feel that you would be stigmatized by walking in the room or participating in a workshop?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a couple of things. So one is the fact that every kid who comes in hasn't been affected by domestic violence. Some of them are just coming in to learn. Some of them are coming in because they want to help their peers. Some of them are coming in because they want to be part of that important mission. So that alone makes it okay for kids to come in and not feel that they're going to be stigmatized. Also, it's really just a warm, welcoming, and friendly atmosphere. I think that really helps.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's a tribute to the counselors that you've selected to operationalize and implement the program. You also had mentioned that each school is really very different. Without referring to the schools, could you just talk a little bit about the kinds of differences you see in the schools? One is a middle school, right? And or is more than one?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We have 3 middle schools and 1 high school.
3 middle schools. Okay. Was there a reason for placing this at that level rather than concentrating specifically on high schools?
I mean, I think because of the capacity of students to be verbal and participate in some of the kinds of components of the project. The middle schools, when students really begin to become more independent, to engage with their peers in a different way, really offers wonderful opportunities to have an impact in a positive way that youth then take forward with them into relationships as they develop. I know the Torre Foundation is obviously also interested in young children and mechanisms for really supporting that. But this was an important place to start in regard to middle school and the ages of students.
So it's a little bit proactive to be at the middle school because it's before maybe they're dating and before they may be able to really have an impact.
And you know, students are hungry to know how to do all of this well as they're growing. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for youth to really have the tools that they want and they need to go forward in a healthy way.
Okay. Just briefly, were there differences among the schools that you could identify?
Yeah. Well, there are first really big differences in size. Some of the schools are a lot smaller than others. Some of the schools seem to have, kids seem a lot more interested in coming and talking about those issues than in other schools. I'm not sure why, but there are just some basic differences like that.
Okay. Well, we are running out of time, so you'll be happy to hear that. I think this is an amazing program, and I know that you're just at the inception of it, but I think that it really has the potential of making a huge difference for young people as they go forward. And I thank you for all you're doing, and we thank the Joe Torre Safe at Home Foundation for partnering with us to bring this to 4 schools in Westchester. So thank you, Megan, and thank you,
You're
Amira.
welcome. Thank you.
If people want more information about Margaret's Place, where should they call?
They can call the agency. We do have a flyer which lists telephone numbers as well. I think it may be on the flyer that you have. They can contact Amira directly.
Okay, so we would call, maybe we'd call you at 761-0600, extension.
I'm just getting an extension because my office changed,
All right.
so we'll
If you
give
would like
Amira's
further
number.
information about Margaret's Place, please call us at 761-0600, and we'll give you the information. Thank you very much for viewing.